The famous Italian monk Giordano Bruno in 1586 published a book in which he said the sun is a star and that the Earth was a planet and that other stars certainly had planetary systems and probably even had life. And for that and other radical things that he said, the church burned him publicly. You could say that extrasolar planets was a much hotter field back then.
Exoplanets were almost as silly as looking for extraterrestrials, you know, little green men on other planets.
Seriously, looking for planet was a kind of weird topic.
The whole field had sort of a snake oil sheen about it because over the previous 50 years or so, there had been many, many claims of the first extrasolar planet ever. And the one thing all those claims had in common was that they were wrong.
In San Francisco, California, astronomers Jeff Marcy and Paul Butler were quietly looking for Doppler shifts, changes in the observed color of light from the star.
I literally spent the first 8 years of the program simply trying to improve the techniques involved in making these sort of measurements, mostly totally under the radar. Nobody knew what we were doing and nobody cared.
A ray of hope that it might be possible to detect a planet came with the discovery by Dave Latham and Zvi Mazet of a mysterious object orbiting the star HD 114762.
They announced the detection of an object that they called a brown dwarf. They looked and they didn't see it in a telescope, so if it was a star, if it was 1,000 times the mass of Jupiter, they would have seen it.
To this day, it is not known whether this object is a planet, a brown dwarf, or even a low-mass star, but its discovery emboldened others to continue the search. A different and dangerous approach to planet hunting was underway in Canada. The team of Gordon Walker and Bruce Campbell employed the deadly gas hydrogen fluoride in an attempt to precisely measure Doppler shifts.
And he showed me their setup in Canada at one point. One person would be in there doing the setup, and the other person would be outside of the room looking through a porthole with 2 gas masks. And his job was, if something went wrong, throw on a gas mask, run into the room, throw the gas mask on the other guy, and drag him the hell out. Any good science should have an element of danger. There should always be at least the vague hint of death involved. Otherwise, you're not really on the cutting edge. They really pioneered the whole field, just a spectacular achievement.
We're all here because of the work that they did.
In 1992, another incredible discovery piqued the interest of astronomers looking for exoplanets. But these new exoplanets were not orbiting a regular star. They were orbiting a pulsar.
2 very small bodies got detected at Arecibo by Wilsham and his colleagues, and they really got us scratching our heads. So we call them pulsar planets.
Wilsham and Frail is somewhat of a special case because I don't think anyone really doubted that these were planets as much at the time, but they were planets around a bizarre object, a pulsar.
But they really were the first 2 bodies to orbit a dead star, not a currently shining star.
The formation of planets is an incredibly robust process. And that's what that discovery told us, and we missed it because we didn't understand it.
We should have understood that planets don't come in ones, that they come in systems. But we were still focused on finding the very first planet.
Halfway around the world in Geneva, a pair of Swiss astronomers were hard at work developing a different technique. Their instrument relied on fiber optic technology, and they used it to turn their eyes on exoplanets.
My first day of work, I got this booklet from Michel that was the ultimate knowledge of data processing of spectroscopy. There was almost nothing at that time, and that's it. And we had to do this instrument. And we designed this practically without much support from anybody else, because the other people felt that this was not interesting.
After a few months, already at the end of '94, we got a signal of variability for several stars, not only one, several stars.
We realized very rapidly that the instrument could be far more precise than we thought. So I started with a couple of stars a bit more intensively, and 51 Peg was one of them because it was bright. And very rapidly, 51 Peg had a very weird behavior.
On one side, we were absolutely sure of the quality of our measurement. All the signal was in favor of a planet, but it's evident it was a so unusual planet.
And I really thought at that time, oh, there is something really bad in the software on the instruments, and I better to figure out, because otherwise my PhD would be compromised.
Over the next several months, the two astronomers checked and rechecked their data. The problem was no one could imagine a giant planet with such a short orbit.
So we came back in July, this time together with Michel, very excited. I say, okay, let's see whether the conclusion that we had with the first bunch of data we had still holds.
The real moment where we had the confirmation of the reality of 51 Peg was really a planet, was in July '95.
First data, just on it, we say, okay, just luck. Second data, still on the curve, we say, okay, well, 2 is far, there's still 2 is not enough. The third one was still on it, following a track, and then we say, well, let's just wait the fourth to be really, really sure, because it was so embarrassing conclusion, that planet, that we really want to make sure that was real.
We got the good period, the good amplitude, and so on. So at the time was really the time for the celebration. Before we were not sure that it was a planet.
I mean, there is a real planet. Believe it or not, there is no theory to predict that planet, but there is a planet there.
Following days of rumors circling the globe, at a conference in Florence, Italy, the news unofficially leaked. A Jupiter-sized planet had been discovered. This massive planet was making a complete orbit of its star in only 4 days. How could that be?
Suddenly there's this 51 Peg, which is a Jupiter-sized planet, but in a 4-day orbit. Well, people knew that was impossible. If Jupiter-like planets orbit at like Jupiter and Saturn orbital distances.
Back in San Francisco, Marcy and Butler, by mere coincidence, had 4 consecutive days of reserved telescope time at the Lick Observatory, the exact amount of time needed to confirm or debunk the claim.
We hit the star very hard for those 4 nights. We reduced the data as quickly as we can. We were blown away. We saw exactly the signal that Mayor and Collot had announced.
Confirming